This is an assembly to a stool, a rather robust and tall stool for a customer. I built a tall bench. It's more of a, it's what they call a standing desk. But occasionally the person does want to sit a little bit, so this stool would match that oak standing desk. This is just the beginning of the assembly. This is one section. There'll be two of these. These legs lean at 4 degrees. Has two rails with through mortise and tenon. They will be cut back and trimmed and probably paired with a dome or a chamfer. And they curve and taper. So the inside face is the reference face. It's the only one that I have. And I'll show you some things about this in upcoming videos. I'll show you how I do the mortise. The mortise has to be cut at 4 degrees because that's what the leg leans. So cutting it through mortise at 4 degrees is probably not easy however you do it, but I think it's certainly easier by hand than it would be any other way. There'll be two of these assemblies, and then they'll lean at 6 degrees, so it starts to get complicated. I'm laying out the rails with their tenons at 4 degrees, and I wanted to show you something I do. I will, in the beginning of a project, I will lay something out very carefully like this 4 degree mark, and I have the 6 degree mark for the other assembly. But I'll have that 4 degree mark laid out very carefully, and I'll keep coming back to it periodically and checking my bevel. These bevels are frustrating in that the new ones don't tighten down as good as the old ones. If you have an old one, it may be rock solid. The newer ones just simply don't stay put all the time. I tighten it pretty snug, and this one has stayed well. This is a new one I'm trying. It's an Empire, and I like the way it's made, but it is a metal-to-metal connection. So I just periodically check it, and I think that that assures better accuracy throughout the project. The mortises are laid out by putting the leg next to another leg on the assembly, which was the starting point, which came from the layout from the pattern. So I used the assembly, set this leg on top of it, and marked the location of the two mortises or rails. From there, I square those lines across. From the top down, I have a 1/4 inch shoulder, and from the bottom up I have a 1/4 inch shoulder. So simply from the top I measured a 1/4 down and made a mark with a knife right in the center, roughly corresponding where the hole's going to be. And the mortise is a 2-inch mortise, so I come down, only I've made it a hair under. Just in case something changes and I need to grow, I can always take one more pass with a chisel, but I'm a hair under. And I've marked that. Then I transfer those marks. As I do them, I put knife nicks in the corner. That's where you then have to use the bevel and take those knife nicks, transfer them to the other side. I actually have them on both sides. I have knife nicks on both sides, so I like to know that they line up. Then I can use the square again, even though this is scooped out and tapering. I'm against a flat reference face here, and I can square across from those knife nicks to get the other side and mark that. Then I've simply taken a mortise and marking gauge, and I use the same reference face on both of them to mark it. Came from this face. I came from this face. It works from either face because this has been set to center by pushing it in, marking it, turning around, checking the agreement. If you land in the same holes, you're centered. So it will work. If you have square stock, parallel faces, it will work, which it does. But it's a good idea to use the same reference face as you transfer a through mortise. Do this side, come around, and then switch to this side and make the mark. That's how I lay out. The lines will guide me. When I set it in the vise, I'll actually tip the piece to make the lines plumb up and down. And that way, with the chisel, I can align the chisel visually to that line and drive through, and I'm only trying to mortise about halfway and then flip over and do the piece. That's the overview of chopping, laying out and chopping the mortise. Just starting the mortise. I still start away from the line a little bit. I'm about 1 millimeter away. Now I use my visual line on this side to start plumb, which is actually at a 4-degree angle. And I'll just skip along light eighth or light eighth interval. The waist. Getting closer to the line. There's a slope there. I can go right up just shy of the line or in the line. It's going to move away from the line. Now I could set in, turn the chisel the other way, lean. Once it has a little bit of a bite, I line it up with my plumb line, actually on the line, then leave her away from the wall. I'll clean out the waist a little bit. And just carry on. You can see how the piece scoops down, and deeper this way. I can come back this way and begin to deepen it. Probably achieving 1/4 3/8 with every dig, every mortise chop. I'm going to do one more time this way. Lean the chisel and it goes straighter, but I'm still off the wall. Now I'll go right on the line. Like that. Clean out the waist. I'm about 1/3 of the way done. We're mortising about 2 inches deep to get through the piece on the through mortise. I just keep carrying on like that. Just a light tap to get started. Try to create a little bit of relief for the chip to be levered out. Now you can lever, get some of those out of there, and carry on just like before. I went about halfway from the other side. Clean out the waste. Just keep on trucking. You might be surprised to see that I'm using a miniature 2-pound sledge. I kind of choke up usually. It doesn't hurt the chisel at all. It's a technique thing. Striking it, this has a large space, but striking it accurately and not overdoing it. But boy, does it give you a good punch. Okay, I'm about through. I've only flipped the piece once. I think I'm going to go through here. Yeah, I'm through. So just connect the sections. It's tempting to take a larger bite. I usually try, and it's not helpful to do that because you just get stuck. You're better off staying with the same consistent amount you've been doing. Which for me is about a heavy 16th or a light 1/8. Clean out the fuzz. Follow my guideline. Through. I want the chisel to move in the mortise, but yet grab. You know, it'll hold itself. Basically, it'll hold itself. Basically, trying to clean any fuzzy stuff out. If it hangs up somewhere, I try not to pair, but sometimes you have to, and you give it a light pass scrape with a chisel, and see if there's any little fuzzy stuff holding it up. It's a 12mm chisel. Basically scraping. Don't be surprised if you grow a little bit. I tend to grow about 1/2 millimeter. It's 12mm chisel. .1241. Not going to be the same reading everywhere. .39. .42. .40. So we'll use this reading. I'll take for instance, say 1240, and I'll deduct the thickness of my stock that I'm going to use on the piece. This is not the piece, but I would measure the stock thickness. You know, if it's 2446, whatever, I would deduct this from this, and then divide that by 2. That leaves me a little amount that I can mark from each edge. Hook this on. I would hook this on the edge of the piece and mark it with a knife. Another, it probably goes without saying, but another tip is that when your stock is thicknessed accurately and widthed accurately and squared accurately, you can lay out any kind of layout and go around the 3 sides, and I am using a reference edge here and a reference face. I'm sorry, here and here is my reference face and my reference edge. So I start here and I go that way and I go this way, and then as I get over to this edge and cross that line, those two should meet up. I think that that's people kind of get that, but they might be wondering, you know, what would have caused it not to meet up, and the degree that it's out really should give you concern. If it's real close, I don't think in a lot of pieces it matters, but in something like this, I want them to come out, and it shows you that they can come out. So I think people know that, but it's worth pointing that out. Show you another little tidbit about the layout. When I measured the mortise with the caliper, I said that it's not uncommon for these to grow by 1/2 millimeter, sometimes 1/3 millimeter, for me anyway. Actually, when I measure this, I was using a 12 millimeter chisel. When I measure it, I got 1260 on the caliper. It's pretty consistent. So then I measured the thickness of the stock, and I was coming up with the width of the stock, which was right around 23 millimeters. I took the 23 millimeters, deducted the width of this, I use a calculator, and then that amount left over divided by 2 is each cheek dimension. I set that cheek dimension on the caliper, and then I just hooked the caliper there and made an indentation with the knife on each side, and then I set marking gauge in the knife dent, move my stock over and tighten it down, and that's how I get my dimension, and then I can mark from both sides. When I go to cut the tenon, I chuck my little bench hook in the vise. I use it as a stop. Take my chisel, make my knife wall. For my saw, now I'm ready to go here. I can kind of back up the cut against my fence at my bench hook and saw away right against the knife line. I marked my cheeks with a little pencil so I could see better. I can see kind of what I'm going to, but there's my cuts. Then I chuck it in the other vise. I like to put a little shelf liner on it in this vise. These are slick oak jaws. With slick wood, sometimes it'll move around, so I'll chuck that in there and it doesn't jump around too much. this saw away, leaving my lines. Listen for the sound, like that. While it's still sitting there, I'll clean up any little boogers there. Make a pass on the shoulder if it needs it. It's pretty darn clean. Be hard to be any better than that. And just keep going. There'll be 1/4 of an inch taken off this way, and we'll test the fit. I'll show you one other tidbit about fitting this joint. I've got the joint together, but I'll tap it out and show you. Maybe a little bit tighter than I would want. I don't think I've seen anybody do this. I don't know why. Surely it's been done before. But I'll take a card scraper on the tenon and remove some material. And sometimes it's just the thing for, get the joint lined up right, sometimes that's just the thing for a nice fit. I don't think I want to take any more off. I kind of like it for my money, but when I can tap it in with a light blow from a mallet, that's good for me. As long as Here's the completed joint. This shoulder, sometimes when you clamp, that'll come together and pull in. That's the point of a dry fit. The other side is even tighter. It's dead tight. That could have a pin in it and be glued, and it wouldn't go anywhere like a draw bore. But I will glue it and pin it. These will get trimmed back and hand paired or hand chamfered. Like I say, I could also pull this piece out and work on this shoulder, loosening it a little bit and then even the two up. So it's just a matter of investigation, but I think I would wait till a dry fit and let it go from there. This is also on the inside of the stool, whereas this is the outside of the stool and is more prominent. But I think I'll probably do a dry fit and then touch up that shoulder, and we'll see all those shoulders come together tight. So it's a pretty cool joint. It's kind of like Craftsman style or the green and green style. You could leave these tenons that long and a piece probably wouldn't look bad, but I don't intend to leave them that long. Thanks for watching.